2015, horror author Joe Hill, the son of Stephen King, is watching Jaws, not casually. He's studying it, the way writers study the architecture of fear. And then he sees her, a woman in the background of a crowd scene on the beach at Amity Island. She isn't an actress. She's an extra, one of hundreds of locals pulled from the streets of Martha's Vineyard during the summer of 1974, when Steven Spielberg filmed the movie that would change Hollywood forever. But this woman's face stops Hill cold, because he's seen it before, not on screen, on a forensic reconstruction. A clay model built over a dead woman's skull, a skull that had been caved in by a single catastrophic blow and left in the dunes of Provincetown, Massachusetts, just 50 miles from where Spielberg was rolling cameras. Char moment. If the resemblance is real, it means a murder victim's face has been playing on loop inside one of the most watched films in history for over 40 years, and no one knew who she was. Her hands had been surgically removed. Her teeth had been knocked from her jaw. Every conventional means of identification, fingerprints, dental records, had been deliberately destroyed. Whoever killed her didn't just want her dead, they wanted her erased. The case would go cold for nearly 50 years. She would be known only as the Lady of the Dunes, and the story of how she finally got her name back begins not in a forensic lab, but in a frozen frame of a summer blockbuster. To understand the Lady of the Dunes, you have to understand the place where she was found, and the summer that swallowed her whole. Provincetown sits at the very tip of Cape Cod, Massachusetts, a narrow curl of sand that juts into the Atlantic like a bent finger. In the 1970s, it was a place of contradictions. Artists and fishermen, wealthy summer tourists and year-round working families. And beyond the town itself, stretching for miles along the coastline, the dunes, vast, rolling hills of sand within the Cape Cod National Seashore, dotted with scrub pine and beach grass, isolated, quiet. The kind of place where a body could lie undiscovered for weeks. It was the summer of 1974. Richard Nixon was weeks from resigning the presidency. Just across the water on Martha's Vineyard, a 27-year-old Steven Spielberg was behind schedule and over budget on a mechanical shark movie that nobody in Hollywood believed in. Locals from the surrounding Cape Cod communities were being recruited as extras for beach scenes. Ordinary people, paid a few dollars to fill the background of what would become the highest-grossing film of its era. Somewhere in all of this, a woman was alive. She had auburn hair, roughly shoulder length. She stood between 5'6" and 5'8". She was estimated to be between 25 and 40 years old. She had received expensive dental work at some point in her life. Gold crowns, careful restorations, the kind of care that suggested either money or access to someone with money. And by the last week of July, she was dead. If you're the kind of person who pays attention to the details that investigators miss for decades, the forensic threads that take 50 years to unravel, you're going to want to stay with this one. Because the details in this case are unlike anything I've covered. July 26, 1974. A young woman is walking her dog through the Race Point Dunes, a remote stretch of the Cape Cod National Seashore, accessible only by sand trails and four-wheel drive tracks. The dunes here rise and fall like frozen waves, some as tall as 30 feet. The hollows between them hidden from any road, any house, any passing car. The dog finds her first. The body is face down on a beach blanket, partially concealed by the natural contour of the dunes. She is nude or nearly nude. Her skull has been crushed by a massive blow, a single devastating impact, likely from a blunt instrument. The force was catastrophic. There is no ambiguity about the cause of death. But what makes this scene different from any other homicide on Cape Cod? What makes investigators stop and reconsider everything they think they know about this case is what has been done after death. Both of her hands have been removed. The cuts are clean, deliberate. Investigators will later describe the removal as surgical in its precision. Not hacked, not torn, but severed with anatomical knowledge. Without hands, there are no fingerprints. Her teeth have been knocked out. Not all of them, but enough to make dental identification functionally impossible. Whoever did this knew that dental records were, in 1974, the primary tool for identifying unknown remains. No scrap of clothing found nearby, no personal item left behind, no identification of any kind. The killer had thought about this. The erasure of identity was not an afterthought. It was the point, Someone wanted this woman to disappear, not just from life but from the record, from memory, from history. Provincetown police and the Massachusetts State Police respond. They process the scene. They photograph the body. And they begin the work of answering the only question that matters. Who is she? The investigation begins with the body itself, because the body is, by design, the only evidence the killer left behind. The medical examiner estimates she has been dead for approximately 1 to 2 weeks before discovery. The summer heat and exposure to the elements have complicated the timeline. Her age is estimated between 25 and 40. Her hair is auburn, roughly shoulder length. She is white. She is between 5'6" and 5'8". And then there are the details that don't fit a random victim. The expensive dental work, gold crowns, porcelain restorations, suggests a woman of some means. The surgical precision of the hand removal suggests someone with medical training, or at minimum, a comfort with anatomy that goes far beyond the ordinary. This was not a crime of passion followed by panicked mutilation. This was controlled, methodical investigators' canvas. Provincetown, they check missing persons reports across Massachusetts, then New England, then the entire eastern seaboard. Nothing matches. No one comes forward. No family files a report. No friend calls the tip line. Think about that for a moment. A woman between 25 and 40 years old, someone's daughter, possibly someone's wife, possibly someone's mother, is found murdered on one of the most popular tourist beaches in New England, and not a single person in the country says, "That's her. That's the woman I'm looking for." Char moment. The silence itself is evidence. Either she had been so thoroughly isolated from everyone who knew her that no one noticed she was gone, or the people who knew her had reason to stay quiet. A forensic sculptor creates a clay reconstruction of her face, a three-dimensional approximation built over the contours of her damaged skull. The image is distributed to newspapers, to police departments, to the FBI's growing database of unidentified remains. It generates leads. None of them pan out. Years pass, then decades. The Lady of the Dunes becomes one of Massachusetts' most enduring cold cases. Periodically, a new detective picks up the file. New reconstructions are attempted. New forensic techniques are applied, and every time the same wall. No name, no match, no family. And then in 2015, Joe Hill posts on social media. Hill, a best-selling horror novelist and the son of Stephen King, has been rewatching Jaws, and he's noticed something in one of the beach scenes, filmed on Martha's Vineyard in the summer of 1974. A woman in the background, an extra, unremarkable at first glance, just one face in a crowd of sunbathers watching the ocean. But Hill has seen the forensic reconstruction of the Lady of the Dunes, and the resemblance, he says, is striking. The hair, the facial structure, the approximate age, the timeline makes it possible. Jaws filmed its beach scenes on Martha's Vineyard throughout the summer of 1974. Provincetown is roughly 50 miles away by water, a short ferry ride across Cape Cod Bay. Locals from across the Cape were recruited as extras. If the Lady of the Dunes was living in the area that summer, it is entirely plausible that she stood on that beach, looked into Spielberg's camera, and was captured on film weeks, possibly days, before someone crushed her skull and cut off her hands. The theory is unconfirmed. Investigators have never formally verified that the woman in the film is the Lady of the Dunes, but the possibility is extraordinary in its implications. It would mean that her image, the face her killer worked so hard to erase from the world, has been playing in living rooms and movie theaters across the planet since 1975. Hundreds of millions of people have watched Jaws, and every single one of them may have looked directly at a murder victim without knowing it. What do you think? Coincidence? Or is she really there? I'd genuinely like to know your take. Drop it in the comments, because this is one of those details that people who study this case can never quite agree on. The Jaws connection reignites public interest, but the fundamental question remains unanswered. Who was she? Without a name, there can be no suspect. Without a suspect, there can be no justice. The case needs a breakthrough that 1974 forensic science simply could not provide. That breakthrough comes from a discipline that didn't exist when the Lady of the Dunes was killed: investigative genetic genealogy. The technique exploded into public awareness in 2018, when it was used to identify the Golden State Killer. The method works like this. DNA from an unknown individual is uploaded to a public genealogy database. Distant relatives, Third cousins, fourth cousins are identified through shared genetic markers. A family tree is built backward and forward until a candidate emerges who matches the age, sex, physical description, and timeline of the unidentified person. It had already solved hundreds of cold cases by the time the FBI's Boston field office turned the technique on the Lady of the Dunes. Investigators extracted DNA from the victim's remains, preserved for nearly 5 decades in evidence storage. They submitted it for genealogical analysis, and in late 2022, the FBI and the Cape and Islands District Attorney's Office made an announcement that had been 48 years in the making. Her name, they said, was Ruth Marie Terry. She was not from Massachusetts. She was originally from Tennessee and had connections to several states, including Florida. She was approximately 37 years old at the time of her death, consistent with the original estimate. She had been married multiple times, and her last known husband was a man named Guy Rockwell Muldavin. If you've been with me from the beginning of this channel, you know I believe in covering every case with the depth it deserves. If you haven't joined the family yet, now's the time. Because the story of Guy Muldavin is where this case goes from cold to deeply, deeply unsettling. Guy Rockwell Muldavin was, by almost every account, a con man. He had used multiple names throughout his life. He had married multiple women, Ruth Marie Terry among them. He had connections that investigators described as reaching into organized crime circles, though the precise nature of those connections has never been fully detailed in public court filings. Muldavin died in 2002, more than 2 decades before Ruth Marie Terry was identified, meaning he could never be arrested, never be interrogated, never face a jury. But in 2023, the Cape and Islands District Attorney's Office formally named him as a person of interest in her murder. Consider what this means. A man who made a career of deception, false identities, multiple marriages, alleged criminal connections, was married to a woman whose killer went to extraordinary lengths to destroy her identity after death. The surgical removal of the hands, the deliberate destruction of the teeth, the absence of any personal belongings at the scene. Every one of these choices speaks to someone who understood that identity is the thread investigators pull. Cut the thread and the case dies. Charm moment, and for 48 years that's exactly what happened. The case died. Not because the evidence wasn't there, but because the victim had been so thoroughly anonymized that there was nothing to connect her to anyone. Investigators believe Muldavin had the means, the motive, and the proximity. But belief is not proof. And with Muldavin dead, the evidentiary standard shifts from criminal prosecution to historical accounting. The question is no longer whether he can be convicted. The question is whether the truth can be established clearly enough to give Ruth Marie Terry something her killer tried to take from her permanently. Her story. The case files remain open. The FBI continues to investigate. And the Cape and Islands DA has made clear that while Muldavin is a person of interest, the investigation is not closed, because the possibility remains that others were involved. So who was Ruth Marie Terry? Not as a case file, not as a forensic puzzle, but as a person. The honest answer is, we still don't fully know, and that in itself is part of the tragedy. She was born in Tennessee. At some point she moved to Florida. She married multiple times, a pattern that investigators have noted without fully explaining. Whether those marriages were voluntary, coerced, or part of a larger pattern connected to Muldavin's world of assumed identities and shifting allegiances remains unclear. What we know is that she ended up on Cape Cod in the summer of 1974. Whether she was living there, visiting, or passing through has never been established. Whether she came willingly or was brought there is another open question. The expensive dental work found on her remains suggests she had access to resources at some point in her life. But resources can come from many places, and not all of them are safe. We know that she was approximately 37 when she died. We know that her hair was auburn. We know that she was found on a beach blanket in the dunes, as if she had been sunbathing, or as if someone wanted it to look that way. And we know that someone, likely someone she knew, someone she trusted enough to be alone with in an isolated stretch of sand, struck her in the head with enough force to end her life, and then spent considerable time and effort ensuring that no one would ever learn her name. For 48 years, they succeeded. Ruth Marie Terry existed in the public record only as a set of measurements, a clay face, and a case number. Her family, if any survived, either didn't know she was missing or couldn't say so. The system that was supposed to connect the dead to the living failed her completely. Here is where the Lady of the Dunes stands today. Ruth Marie Terry has a name. She has a tentative identity. She has, after half a century, a place in the world that is not defined solely by the manner of her death. Guy Rockwell Muldavin has been named as a person of interest, but he died in 2002, and no charges have ever been filed against anyone for Ruth Marie Terry's murder. The investigation remains officially open. The FBI and the Cape and Islands District Attorney continue to pursue leads, but the passage of 50 years has done what the killer's mutilation could not. It has eroded the witness pool, degraded the physical evidence, and narrowed the window for a definitive resolution. The Jaws connection remains unverified but haunting. If that woman in the background of Spielberg's beach scene is Ruth Marie Terry, then her image has been seen by an estimated 1 billion people worldwide. She has been in living rooms, on airplanes, in college dorm rooms, streaming on phones at 2 in the morning. Her face has been freeze-framed, screen-captured, uploaded and shared, and not once in all those viewings across all those decades did anyone say, "I know her." That is the cruelest irony of this case. The killer removed her hands so she couldn't be fingerprinted, knocked out her teeth so she couldn't be identified through dental records, left no clothing, no jewelry, no personal effects, and yet possibly her face was preserved in one of the most widely distributed pieces of media in human history. The very thing the killer tried to destroy was captured on celluloid and projected onto screens around the world, but even that wasn't enough. It took forensic genealogy, a technology that wouldn't exist for another 44 years, to finally give her back her name. Ruth Marie Terry was born. Ruth Marie Terry lived. Ruth Marie Terry was murdered in the dunes of Provincetown, Massachusetts, in the summer of 1974. And for nearly 50 years, the only people who knew her name were the people who had reason to keep it secret. She has her name now. She does not yet have justice. If this case stays with you the way it stayed with me, I'd ask you to share it, because sometimes the thing a cold case needs most is one more pair of eyes. And if you haven't yet, join the family. I cover cases like this one because I believe that no one should be forgotten, not even the Lady of the Dunes.